Hey everyone, this is Feared Bliss. So in this video I want to do a little bit of a deep dive into the term solo self-found and the kind of my experience, reading the different ways that people have been using this term. I think there's multiple definitions for it, but I think people don't realize this is happening. It's mostly happening subconsciously. So yeah, I made a post on the Moving Caravan a little bit earlier today about twinking, untwinking, and live off the land type of thing. So I kind of wanted to read this post to you. This will be mostly just voice, but I'll link the post in the video description. And yeah, I mean, if anything, you could also check out my cactus setup video. There's a portion at the end of the video where I kind of go into Cactus's templating and labeling system that kind of allows you to do some interesting organization of your characters. I've also documented this in the Cactus documentation to some extent. And then you guys might be familiar with my alpaca extended stash mod, which is this kind of cleaned up, forked version of Pluggy that I did like back in 2017, 2018. I don't usually recommend people using Alpaca anymore. You could use it if you want to. The code is open source. I left it out there for people to use. But I would recommend, instead of using Alpaca, to just switch over to Cactus's templating and labeling system. Since it's just, it's much smaller, you don't need to have all this extra like code running in the game, and it makes your, it won't be as unstable because you don't have this whole like Alpaca pluggy thing like running in Diablo 2. So yeah, with that said, I'll begin the post. So I was saying, hey all, while researching some definitions on twinking, I found the following term, live off the land. Live off the land is a purist playstyle in which a player only uses items his character finds themselves. No trading, twinking, or muling is allowed. I remember many years ago I was writing up the definition of what I think solo self-found meant, and I was arguing that there are actually two types of SSF. The first type of SSF is what I consider player-based SSF, and the second type is character-based SSF. Player-based SSF revolves around the human being playing the game. Thus, you're collecting items and storing items in your own stash, and all of your characters can share that wealth. Almost as if all of your characters are living in the same world, or are in the same family guild, and thus you, the human, are basically the guild bank. Your character's actions and lives impact each other and your future characters. Thus, a twinking scenario is automatically created. Character-based SSF revolves around the individual character. Each character is isolated from each other and each live in their own instance of the world and its history. Thus, solo is about the character itself. At a high level, this seems identical to the definition for live off the land. Since your characters are isolated, there is no possibility for twinking and trading. Muling is a slightly different thing, and we'll get to that soon. In modern times, probably for at least the last 10 years, when someone says SSF, they are usually referring to the player-based SSF definition. In my Cactus setup video and in my Cactus documentation, I describe this character-based SSF approach a bit and how Cactus' templating and labeling system can help you organize your characters and stashes a bit differently than what was easily possible before. This type of pattern is also what ended up happening with Alpaca. Since I removed the shared stash component, each individual character has their own set of infinite stashes. Thus, if you were to use Alpaca for your play, and you never traded twink between your characters, then it would be considered live off the land, since you don't need a mule either. Now on to the muling part. It was a clear and known design decision that Blizzard North made for Diablo 2 to have intentionally small stashes. Having a small stash and no official way to transfer items between characters on single player, excluding TCP/IP LAN or Battle.net, meant that players were forced to make critical decisions about what items to keep and what items to throw away. In Diablo 1, you didn't have a stash at all. However, on single player, people would essentially use Tristram itself, the floor, as a stash. This was possible since saving a single player character saved the entire game state, including monsters killed, exact state of the maps like activated shrines, items on the floor, etc., meant that you could throw all of your extra items on the floor and you'll be okay. The only time you would need to really make the final decision on what to keep and what to throw out was once you beat the game, and you want to regenerate the game world by starting a new game with the same character. Since a new game would mean a completely fresh instance of the game state, which would wipe everything on the ground in Tristram. Given that history, Diablo 2 was made to have a stash, but a very small one. With that said, the lines of what muling is could be blurred when taking a character-based SSF approach with Cactus and determining whether or not that still fits the live off the land definition. I would argue that it still is, for the simple reason that I'm looking at that type of style as the main character has their own house with a single closet for storage. The mules are not really characters, but are just extra closets. In that case, whether I have one closet, the main character, or 100 closets, each other mule holding stuff for the main character, doesn't change the fact that the main character is the only character that's actually playing the game. If you were to use Alpaca in the same exact scenario, that would allow you to transfer all of the items in your other closets, mules, into your main character, and allow you to remove all of the extra closets, mules. You would be left with one character file in that Cactus entry. This would be considered live off the land, since you are still playing the same main character and you never need to trade mule or twink. Ultimately, having one Cactus entry per character to isolate them from each other and have their own set of mules is just a simple mechanism for overcoming a technical limitation, or in this case, an explicit design decision by Blizzard North. It doesn't really change the fact that you are still only playing one character, finding items with only that one character, and storing those items somewhere, whether it could be a mule, a bank, or basement, whatever. No other main character is helping you. Finding a godly rare item in one of your other main characters in another Cactus entry isn't going to be used by your other main character in another Cactus entry. Thus, I still think this is live off the land. But even if we don't want to call it live off the land, it still is living off the land, even if just in spirit. Maybe we can call it Cactus live off the land, or Cactus LOTL, if you really want to have another term. Hopefully this brings some clarity between these two terms. What do you all think? How do you think about the lives of each of your characters, their relation to themselves, to each other, and to you, the player? So yeah, I mean, that's basically the post. Yeah, I kind of thought about it for many years. Yeah, I just, I see people saying, oh, I play solo self-found. I want, whether Path of Exile, Diablo 3, Diablo 4, whatever, to have a solo self-found mode. But then to me, I was just like, but hold on, like, yeah, there is a solo self-found, like, I'm the one, like, me, the human being, is just kind of playing the game, and, like, any item that I find, me fear bliss, you can say, I could use it with, between all of my other characters. But then at the same time, there is this other one where it's like, well, what about the individual character, right? The barbarian themselves, like in living their life in the game world and them finding their own things, right? They don't know anything about your sorceress or your Amazon. So you could argue that it's also, that individual character itself is living off the land, and that could be soul self-found. Obviously, this would have kind of an implementation or policy impact depending on which definition you go with, right? If you go with the player-based SSF, which seems to be the most popular way of doing it, then, if you did implement a solo self-found option in one of these games, that would mean that, yeah, like, you can't trade, right? But trading means you can't trade with other players, other human being players, right? It still would allow you or give you the ability to use a shared stash, right? Which, like, Diablo 2 Resurrected has this, right? A shared stash. So a solo self-found mode in Diablo 2 Resurrected, if implemented, could mean you don't have a shared stash because it's solo self-found like the individual character. Or it could mean, yeah, you could use a shared stash, but you can't trade with other people. So yeah, it was just an interesting, interesting thought experiment for me to kind of, just kind of go through this a little bit with a fine-tooth comb and try to kind of understand this a bit more. And not just in terms of the way that modern players are playing action RPGs, but also traditionally how, like, action RPGs were played, right? Like, I'm coming more from, like, the original Diablo 1, Diablo 2 pre-expansion, or, Diablo 2 expand. I mean, I did start D2 in 2003 when 1.10 first came out. So, and then I kind of went, a little bit forward and then a little bit backwards, but I tend to be more on the older versions now, even sometimes even before, like, 1.10, but yeah. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. Post below. Register in the Moving Caravan. Post in my original post and stuff, and hope to see you guys in. Well, I can't really see you guys because we're all playing single player, but hopefully I'll see you on the forums. Take care, guys. Bye.